Hello everyone, welcome back to Out of Spec Testing. I'm Ryan, and today we've got another medium Chevrolet battery. This is the Chevrolet Silverado EV LT extended range. So we've got, again, medium 170 kilowatt hour battery, though we've got more out of that battery before. So let me tell you a little bit about this truck and a little bit about our testing procedures here for a 70 mile per hour range test. So with this Chevy Silverado EV LT extended range, we do have that medium battery, and we also have a Premier package, which gives us these 22-inch wheels and Bridgestone Alenza and Lightning, which I haven't seen before, and it has a little EV logo, which is nice, and extremely high tire pressures. 68 up front, 75 in the rear. That's about as high as I've ever seen it, so yeah, very high tire pressures, which should help a little bit with efficiency, but may sacrifice a little bit of comfort on that end. Regardless, we're here to do a 70 mile per hour range test, and basically it's exactly what it sounds like. How far can this truck go when you take it on the highway and drive at a steady 70 miles per hour? And that's a 70 miles per hour GPS speed. Now, our procedures are pretty standardized, and we try to do the same thing every single time. So the first thing I did was set the tire pressures to the factory recommended pressures, and then I drove over here into Wellington, Colorado to these chargers. I preheated the battery as much as I possibly could since it was sitting outside, and it's getting over 100 kilowatts, so a little bit cold, but throughout this rather long charging session that I have right now, it will definitely heat up the battery. That battery will be nice and warm for this test, which actually is pretty beneficial for this truck. Despite being incredibly large and rather inefficient and with a huge battery, it does have heat scavenging. That means that it will use the heat in the battery to help heat the cabin, basically making sure that no energy is wasted, maximizing what we have, and really trying to take a step toward efficiency, even if it might be a bit strained in such a big truck. Once we've completed charging this massive battery, the next thing that we do is get in the car and put the driving mode into the most efficient setting possible, and then set the climate control to eco mode between 68 and 72. And we'll actually be running that climate a little bit before, while it's still charging, so that it can use the charger to generate the energy, or to provide the energy to heat up the cabin, rather than using the battery. We don't want to have to make the car heat up a very cold cabin for very obvious reasons. That would affect efficiency. So trying to maximize every little bit of juice that we can out of this truck. Once we're good, we'll unplug and head onto the highway, which is just right here, and do a nice gentle acceleration up to 70 miles per hour GPS speed. And then we're just gonna drive north. It'll be I-25, and then take it into 80 East, going toward Nebraska. And basically what we're just gonna do is drive on the highway, maintain 70 miles an hour, avoid drafting any trucks, and then turn around once we're around 55, 60-ish% state of charge, and drive back here. We're not going to set the charger as a destination. We do not want the vehicle to precondition the battery. That will use extra energy, and again, we just want to see what the maximum range will be in these conditions on this day. So once we're back here, we'll take some time and loop back and forth on the highway, make sure we drain as much battery as possible, and then once we're getting to a very low state of charge, we're going to get off the highway and go on to the frontage road, which is just on the other side of the highway. That frontage road will allow us to try to maintain 70 for as long as possible, up until the point where the vehicle will no longer be able to maintain 70 miles an hour. That right there will be our result. That's how far the vehicle went in our 70 mile per hour range test. However, we're not totally done there, because we're just gonna keep on driving. We want to see what these cars do when they're completely dead, how they react, how they respond, and document it. I think it's important to show everyone what happens, and I'd like owners to be aware, at least, of what's going to happen if they do happen to run their vehicle out of juice. So we'll be able to see that entire experience a little bit later. One more detail that I want to show you, and gosh, I am way too short for this, but it got the tonneau cover on here. So that came with the car, and that'll help range and efficiency a little bit. It just makes the truck a little bit more aerodynamic and will, again, just help range a little bit. And now let's move on to discussing conditions, which aren't good. That's just the reality of it. It's Colorado in the winter and it's cold. We do have dry roads, which is nice. However, it is probably going to be in the 20-ish degree range for the majority of this test. That will, of course, affect our results. Batteries are less efficient in cold weather, and we're just not going to see the best range possible. However, this will give us a very good figure to find out what the winter range is, just to see how much the truck is affected by cold weather. We can also talk about how this compares with some of our other tests with other vehicles that are very similar, other Silverado EVs under different conditions. But regardless, I think this will be a very interesting data point and something to point to for winter driving conditions. I know a lot of people have concerns about EVs, especially in the winter, because the reality is they do lose range and they are less efficient. However, I think for a lot of people and a lot of situations, it's not as big of a problem as they think. And I think this truck, more than anything else, will be able to show that. Charging up, we're 99% doing 21 kilowatts. And just wanted to show, I've got Eco Climate on right here. And then if I go to my settings, drive modes, there's not a whole lot. So just, again, in normal, and I've got one pedal driving on, which it will not be very important since we're not doing much stopping. And yeah, again, it's just going to be some gentle driving. We'll let this finish up and then we can unplug and get going. It gave me a little chime and we are now done charging. Let's see some of those charging stats. Took an hour, 61.3 kilowatt hours. All right, let's unplug and get on the road. 100% state of charge. We're in the Eco normal drive mode and Eco Climate, 70 degrees. Got all my snacks. Let's hit the road. We're now entering the freeway and doing a nice gentle acceleration up to 70 miles per hour GPS speed. And aiming to try to hit that at the end of this merge ramp, but there's a Toyota in the way, so unfortunately, not going to happen. Gentle acceleration again, but get up to 70. And set my cruise control. Perfect. And it says we have 390 miles. And one thing I'm very grateful for is this Super Cruise option that we have on this Silverado EV LT extended range. What a name. But yes, it shows 390 miles like the EPA suggests, and we've got a pretty clear open road. Toyota is slowly inching away from us, and yeah, happy to be able to just sit back and relax for most of this. Like I said earlier in the beginning, conditions are not great. It's 23 degrees, not a ton of wind. However, the temperature is a pretty big factor in this one. One other small note that I did not mention, I already checked and 71 miles per hour indicated is as close as I can get to 70 miles per hour GPS. Just had to move the phone a little bit so the camera could see me. It was flashing and not happy about it. But again, 71 is as close to 70 GPS as we can get it. So 70 miles per hour GPS and we're good to go. Got the dog for Jordan and Super Cruise. We've turned on to I-80 heading east and we're going toward Nebraska. And again, I wanted to mention conditions. It looks like we're probably going to get pretty close to the high in temperature right here at 34 degrees, which again, not great, but is what it is. It's Colorado in the winter, so only so much we can do. But these are the best conditions that we have while we have this truck, so happy that we can at least get this data. I also want to mention wind. We don't have that much. It's probably only about 10 miles per hour and for only part of the drive in Nebraska. So really not that much of a factor, which is great. I'm happy to report that. In other news, everything's going really smoothly. Super Cruise has been great. We're at 90% state of charge still. We've gone 33 miles. And yeah, definitely a little bit more time before we turn around, but I think we're going to get potentially close to 350 miles. Into Nebraska, and we're at 80% state of charge. We've gone 74 miles just about. Yeah, it's been good. Super Cruise has been lovely, and I've talked about this in previous videos before, but I really love Super Cruise. I think the biggest complaint I have is that it only works on pre-mapped roads, and I think that's a huge limitation. If it even just had basic lane centering on top of this Super Cruise feature, I think it would be the best driver assistance feature on the market, but it unfortunately doesn't. It only works on pre-mapped highways, but when it's working, man, it's really impressive, really good. We are at 75% state of charge. We have gone just about 93 miles. We're at 1.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which is, again, pretty poor efficiency, but kind of what we were expecting given the conditions. I do want to again express how much I love this Super Cruise. It's been really great. I'm really happy with it. And otherwise, this has been a pretty comfortable experience. The sound system's solid. All the materials in the car are good. I do want to mention the price on this. And we've got this is, like I've said, the Chevrolet Silverado EV LT extended range. And as tested, it's about $85,000, which is a lot of money for a truck. But you do get a huge battery, and we do have a $10,000 or just under $10,000 package, premium package, and it adds a bunch of really nice stuff. But again, a pretty nice place to spend time, which if you do get this truck, you're going to be spending a good bit of time here because the battery is so darn big. We're making great progress, and we're at 65%. I've gone ahead and put in our the Maverick, not the Charger. Important to do that so that we do not precondition the battery. But same location put in at the destination, and it says we'll arrive with about 10% state of charge. So the next exit is going to be quite a while after this following one. So I decided we'll just turn around here, and like always, we can just do some loops over closer toward the Charger where the exits are closer together and we're at less of a risk of getting stranded or not being able to make it back fully. So I think this will be a nice conservative time to turn around, and we can take a quick look at some of our stats. We've gone 131 miles at 1.9 miles per kilowatt hour. All right, taking it off of cruise control and doing a nice gentle deceleration to slow down and turn around. And again, we're using regenerative brakes, and this will put energy back into the battery pack. And probably a nice little bit, because this is a big, heavy truck rather. And as we slow down, we're putting energy into the pack, and again, it's probably going to be a pretty negligible amount when it comes to this range test, but every little bit counts, and I want to see how far this car can go, give it the best shot it possibly has, and that's going to involve being as gentle as possible. And a nice gentle acceleration up to 71 indicated, which is 70 on the GPS. And the aim is for us to be at 70 miles an hour at the end of the merging lane. So let's see if we can get that. 71, perfect. And start the cruise control. Lovely. Crossed over 50% state of charge here, and we have gone 170 miles. We're now doing 1.8 miles per kilowatt hour, and we're on track for about 340 miles of total range if everything's linear and we get as much range on the last 50% as the first 50%. I was hoping we would get over 350, but we'll have to see how it ends up. one other thing I wanted to mention is our route planning tells us we'll get back with about 11% state of charge, so everything's looking good. We're 25% state of charge, and we have gone 237 miles. So about to make my turn onto I-25 South, and then we'll go back down toward Wellington and take a lap or two back around that area. That'll be able to drain the battery as much as we can. There is a good bit of crosswind. Gotta take over. Super Cruise wasn't happy there, but yeah, there was a good bit of crosswind that we got a warning there up on that billboard. Don't know if you were able to see that, but yeah, again, not ideal conditions. In the 30s, a little bit warmer than I was expecting, but there was also a bit of wind, about 10 miles per hour for a little bit of Nebraska, and then a bit of crosswind on the northern end of I-25. Just a few miles, but we skirted around much of the wind, which is really, really nice. There was some time when I got to feel some of it, but for the most part, not a whole lot to deal with. There is the exit for Owl Canyon in about a mile. Just wanted to give a quick update. We are at 18% state of charge, and we would be arriving back at the charger with quite a bit more energy than we initially predicted. Again, that was 10%, and it's saying 17% now, so a very conservative estimate. However, our plan now is to exit the highway. We are going to do a nice, gentle deceleration using regenerative brakes to put as much energy into the pack as possible. Of course, I've already explained this, and again, I want to get as far as I possibly can. But I'm going to go ahead and turn around here at Owl Canyon and loop around, go on I-25 North again, see exactly how far I can get. So again, just a gentle deceleration here, and then I'll turn around and have a gentle acceleration hitting 70 miles an hour at the end of the merging lane. 10% state of charge, and let's take a quick look at the trip. 284 miles at 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour. Now let's take a look at our reroute, and it's looking like we should get back with a pretty low state of charge, so this should be good. I'll take the next turnaround. And of course, I will be using regenerative brakes like I always do and maximizing the energy back into the battery. So you'll join me as I turn around and head back onto the highway for a final time. I just got a charge vehicle soon warning, and that happened right when I hit 30 miles of range. And again, that was at 10% state of charge. Bright sun, but we're doing all right and doing a nice gentle acceleration here. Awesome. At 4% with 14 miles, it changed from telling me I had 14 miles to low. It says charge vehicle now. I have lost cruise control. There's no super cruise, no dumb cruise control either. And 2 miles from the exit, so no problem. And we'll be able to maintain 70 for a little bit longer, I think, and see how long we can go on the frontage road going 70. Starting to get a really nice sunset, and also this is our exit for Owl Canyon. We're going to be getting onto the frontage roads now. We're at 3% state of charge, and it says we have low for the miles remaining, which I always think is a little funny. It'd be really nice if they just told us about how many miles, but is what it is. Nice gentle deceleration. Oh yeah, that's the throttle pedal is very squishy. Feels very slow in here, but hey, that's pretty normal for 3% state of charge. Okay, let's see if we can make it up to 70 again. this is fine. It's usable. That was my hand warmer. Okay, now I'm flooring it. Well, it looks like we're not able to go any faster than 66, so I'm going to call it here. It was at 310 miles at 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour. So again, 310 at 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour is not terribly impressive. It's actually pretty disappointing and fairly low. One other thing I did want to check is energy info. It looks like we've used about 180 kilowatt hours, which is quite a bit less than what I was expecting. Still, able to hold 63 miles an hour. I've got a turtle in the bottom right, but yeah, let's keep on keeping on. I should have a Tesla Cybertruck and Brandon someplace around nearby-ish to rescue me. So we'll see how far we can keep it going after 310 miles on the highway speeds, but we're already slowing down quite a bit, so I don't think it'll be that much longer, but we'll have to see. Okay, going 44 miles an hour. I have a Cybertruck right behind me who will be rescuing me, and things are going fine. We are still 5.5 miles out. I doubt we would make it, but it doesn't matter because we have rescue. Let me pull up the stats real quick. We're at 320 miles, so an extra 10 miles when we couldn't even maintain 70, which is pretty far. That's a pretty good buffer. Hey, drivetrain power lost. Pull over safely. I'm going to see if there's a good spot up there. Looks like there is. And let Brandon know. Not ideal, but this will be okay. Okay, perfect. Now I am going to pop the hood, put into park, pop the hood. There we go. And unplug. Now let's take a look at our stats real quick. 321 miles and 182.5 kilowatt hours, 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour, if I didn't already say that. Let's go ahead and plug in.
All right, hazards are on. It's time to pull over. See how we did.
All right, let's see. We're plugged in.
Pulling 8 kilowatts.
Sweet.
7.5 kilowatts.
Perfect. Now we can just hang out for a little while. First, I gotta address a goof I made here. I actually thought that this was the biggest 205 kilowatt hour battery that GM offers. That's not the case. This is the slightly smaller 20 module pack. It's about 170 or 180 kilowatt hours. And again, not the biggest pack, but it shares this pack with the Hummer EV SUV as well as the Silverado EV 3WT work truck. And again, just a silly mistake on my part, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of context and reasoning as to why I might sound a little bit disappointed in some of those previous clips. Next, I want to review the conditions, and they just weren't very great. It was cold and in the 20-degree Fahrenheit range, and unfortunately, that has a pretty significant impact on batteries and efficiency. Additionally, there was also wind on a lot of I-80, about 10 miles per hour for the majority of it, and then there was about 10 or 15 miles with a 30 mile per hour crosswind. Pretty significant there. And finally, I wanted to mention that this car was optioned with all-season tires, and those were specific for an electric vehicle, but I imagine they're not going to be the most efficient option that you can get. So, despite all these factors, we did get a pretty solid result. Some good news is we did not have nearly as difficult of a time charging back up from zero as we have in the past with GM EVs. We were able to plug in and it just started charging immediately, and just like we expected, it was pulling the expected amount of charge from the rescue truck. And usually when we have a GM EV, we just have lots of problems. The moment you touch the brake pedal, it just resets everything. It doesn't want to turn on. Sometimes you can reset it by resetting the 12-volt battery by using a 10 millimeter with an extension, taking it out. It's a big hassle, and it only kind of worked, and it's still just a long time to get this going. But for whatever reason, on this day, it didn't happen. We were able to just plug in, and at 2%, we checked about 20 minutes into charging. I was able to press the brake pedal. Everything turned on like normal. I was quite surprised. And we decided, hey, let's give it a shot. We unplugged the car stayed on, and I was able to put it into drive. No problem. So I was really happy to see that, and was really fortunate that we didn't have to wait around for such a long time or wait till the car would reset itself. Really happy to see that, and hopefully that's some sort of an update that we'll see more consistently. The Silverado EV managed 310 miles, which is honestly a pretty solid result. We also saw about 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour for our efficiency. That's honestly a really good amount of range to work with when conditions are this poor. It's also right in line with some previous Silverado tests that we completed. If this Silverado LT had the biggest battery, it would have theoretically gone about 365 miles. We tested the Silverado RST, which does have that biggest battery, and there was a lot of wind that day. It was chilly, but nowhere near as cold. It was in like the 40 to 50 degree range. That went 378 miles, so 365 versus 378. I think that makes sense. It's a pretty close result, and conditions were different and not ideal for either, but I think that makes sense to me. We also have results from a Silverado 3WT, which has the exact same battery. In that test, it was much warmer, and also the 3WT has smaller, more efficient, likely wheels. And during that test, like I said, 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and we managed to go 329 miles in that test, so 19 more miles. This result fits in with our expectations. Conditions were more fair, and the work truck has those smaller wheels, so we should expect to see more range. I'm always happy to see that kind of consistency, or at least the results make sense and have an explanation. Now let's talk comparisons. Before I get started, a little bit of a disclaimer, and that's just that these tests were conducted on different days out in the real world. There are some things that are just out of our control, such as temperature or wind, and that's going to have a significant effect on these results. Still, we're going to do our best to make some assumptions and inferences based off of the data that we do have. So with that, let's take a look. And with a quick glance, it doesn't look very good, but with some examination, I actually think this is a really solid result. I think in a head-to-head comparison, this could actually outperform a Hummer EV. This is because the Hummers were tested under pretty fair conditions, and they weren't too far off in range. Beating the Hummers would be impressive because the Hummer does have that biggest battery. It's 20% bigger in battery capacity than the Silverado LT extended range. I guess, to be fair, that might be more of a criticism of the efficiency of the Hummer rather than praising the Silverado's efficiency, but that's neither here nor there. I also think that the Silverado would finish with a similar range when compared to a Rivian Max Pack. We saw a Rivian Max Pack go 335 miles in pretty fair conditions, and I think that Silverado would probably be close around that number. Despite the relatively solid performance, I think it's important to keep in mind that this is really just the medium battery. There's a larger battery available, and you can do that if you want. There's also going to be a smaller battery in the future, but right now we're talking about the middle battery. And despite how it looks at first glance, I actually think this is a really solid result and a very usable amount of range. Despite very poor conditions, 310 miles is quite solid. Well, with that, that's all that I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.